Hello and welcome to another whiteboard training seminar with Cheeky Scientist. I'm Isaiah Henkel, and today we're talking about 3 things that hold PhDs back from getting hired. Now, what most PhDs think in terms of what holds them back is usually incorrect. So as PhDs, we think that it's our background training that's holding us back. We can only get jobs that are exactly aligned with what our research was in, or what we teach, or what our particular field of study is. This is not the case. In academia, we really zero in on a very small field, but that same small field is not going to have a job title associated with it exactly. So if you're just searching for jobs that have to do with your small field as a PhD, you're really missing out. This is not what's going to hold you back. As PhDs, we also think that other factors hold us back, such as maybe our age, or the fact that we need a visa, or the fact that we have a gap on our resume, or even the fact that we've been in academia our entire life and we've never worked in industry. This is not going to hold you back. Instead, there are 3 things that are going to hold you back more than anything else. And the first one is lack of commitment. We see in our association PhDs who come in that the biggest thing holding them back is that they're not committed to their job search. And some are not even committed to transitioning into industry. One of the first questions you'll be asked on any interview as a PhD is, why do you want to transition to industry? Are you sure that you're going to leave academia behind? Are you sure you want an industry job, or is it just something you are considering? Are you kind of on the fence? If you're not committed to getting hired, no company is going to hire you. More importantly, if you're not committed to your job search, if you're not going to treat your job search as a kind of second job and make it a priority, if you're going to keep only publishing, or only finishing your thesis, or only getting some more experiments done as your priority, it's going to be very hard for you to get a job. Doesn't mean that those other things can't be a priority, but you need to make getting a job a top priority, especially if you're leaving academia and those publications are no longer going to matter. You need to get committed to your job search. This means that you have to start pursuing multiple job leads. You have to start going to networking events. You have to start generating referrals. You have to treat your job search as something you need to strategically define with daily action items. The same way that you would if you're working in the lab or teaching. Right? You usually have some sort of agenda. You need to commit to it. The second thing is dependence. So as PhDs in academia, we tend to become very dependent on making that next step in our career, whatever that is. We're dependent on the system, or maybe we're dependent on our advisor or our PI, and we think that they are the gatekeeper, right? They're who are going to help us get ahead in our career. And then when they don't help us, or we hit a sticking point like our thesis committee won't give us the green light to graduate, or your advisor or your PI won't support you, we're completely lost because we've become dependent. A practical example is we think that our career progress depends on our publications. When it doesn't matter outside of academia how many publications you have, it really it requires you to start thinking beyond just publications. Or we become dependent on a letter of recommendation. We get really afraid that we're not going to get a letter of recommendation from our PI. And we become dependent on maybe who our PI knows, or who our advisor knows, or who our thesis committee knows. This is something that happened to me. I got to the end of my PhD career, and I thought, okay, I just need to talk to my PI and talk to my thesis committee members. They're going to know everybody. They're going to know people at all the different companies I want to work for. They'll know the company names. They'll be able to put me in touch and get me hired. And then I started asking, and they literally knew nobody in industry. The one thesis committee member was a dean who I thought was very well connected. He knew one person who worked at a company that was only offering industrial postdocs. It was very surprising, and I think a lot of PhDs go through this. We think, my PI, my advisor, my thesis committee, they're well connected, they'll take care of me. I don't need to network because they can put me in touch with somebody when the time comes. Do not be dependent on anyone else for getting hired. Not in this sense, especially not in academia, because most lifetime academics don't know anybody else outside of academia. Letters of recommendations, don't obsess over this. A letter of recommendation is not important in industry. They'll ask for some references, but it doesn't have to be your PI, and you certainly don't need a formal letter of recommendation. So stop being dependent on that and stop making excuses by saying, well, I have to do this so I get a good letter of recommendation. No, you don't. Don't make any excuses for prioritizing your job search more highly, and start being dependent on yourself for advancing your career. The third thing is single-mindedness. So a lot of PhDs, we get very, very focused on a single thing, right? And what it is for most PhDs is resumes. And they completely misunderstand how resumes are used in the job search process. Most PhDs don't understand how to write a resume. They don't understand how to properly get a resume into somebody's hands, not just a software program's, not just in a software program, but actually in a human being's hands who can make a hiring decision. They don't know where a resume fits in their job search. And so what we do as PhDs, we think, well, I just have to upload more resumes. I've uploaded 20 resumes, haven't heard anything back, or I've gotten an automated response. This happened to me for like 6 months in my at the end of my PhD career before I was like, I think I'm doing this wrong. But again, we think, okay, I've uploaded 20, I just need to upload more. I need to upload 30, 40, 50, 60. We think that we just need to try harder, and that isn't the case. And that kind of single-mindedness can hold you back. Now, on that note, we are doing a free webinar resume this Thursday. So we're doing a free webinar on Thursday covering industry resumes, the 10 new rules of industry resumes on Thursday. If you're watching this on our Facebook page, there's a post on our Facebook homepage, our business page for Cheeky Scientist, where you can sign up for free. It's a brand new webinar. We're covering a lot of new concepts because in the past 2 months, a lot of changes have been made to the hiring system, especially for the pharmaceutical, biotechnology, and engineering fields. So if you're a PhD and you're looking to get hired, things are quite a bit different now because of the changing regulations. So we're going to cover those on Thursday's resume webinar. So you'll want to check that out. Now, a couple of things, staying on resumes, a lot of PhDs think that it's where you start your job search. You just have to write a resume. As PhDs, we really like to write. We're a little bit introverted maybe, so writing and then uploading online and not having to deal with a person, it's kind of comfortable for us. It's home base. You have to change this up. Things do not work today like they did in the 1980s or even the 1990s for your job search. You don't upload your resume and then, a lot of us as PhDs, we think it's like the reviewer process, right? If the third reviewer likes your resume, you're going to get called into an interview. And that's how we think a job search works still. We think, okay, resume, if my resume is good enough, I'm going to go directly to an interview. Doesn't work like that. And then we think if I answer all of the interview questions correctly, if I memorize all of these common interview questions online, then I'm going to get hired. It does not work this way. Okay? Instead, you have to start your job search with actually creating a strategy. What jobs do you want? What jobs are available? Do you even know what's available for you outside of academia? For me, when I was in graduate school, there was academia, the academic path, right? For me, it was postdoc, professorship, maybe one day. And then there was a black box. Had no idea what else was out there. Slowly, I learned that there was bench positions and non-bench positions in industry. But I didn't realize that there was dozens and dozens of jobs, top-paying jobs, where 30,000 PhDs a year are going into these top-paying jobs I didn't even know about. So you have to create a strategy, because as a PhD, you're very driven, you're very intelligent, but it doesn't matter how driven or intelligent you are, you can't hit a target you don't set. So you have to figure out what's available to you, and you have to start learning from professionals that are out there on the ground in those jobs what the job is like on a day-to-day basis. What's the career trajectory like? You have to start learning these things. You have to start building up your network, which brings me to the second thing. Referrals. Most jobs are filled through referrals. For PhD level jobs, 60 to 70% of those jobs are filled through referrals. 60 to 70%. As opposed to just uploading resumes, only 5 to 8% of jobs are filled through uploading resumes. And that number is going down because nobody wants to hire a PhD into a top position making an average of $90,000 a year just by looking at their resume. They want somebody else to vouch for that person, someone else to refer them for the job. So really what a job search is going to look like for you is creating that strategy, starting to build your network, getting referrals, right? So setting up informational interviews. If you don't have a job referral network, the Cheeky Scientist Association has a pre-made job referral network. You can learn more about it at phdsgethired.com. But you have to start building your network, getting referrals. And you can't rely on, again, your advisors, your PIs, your thesis committee members to have a network outside of academia. Once you start getting referrals, that is when your resume will become important. You get a referral and you build a professional relationship with someone, and then you ask them to pass along your resume to the hiring manager, or you give them your resume. And so an actual physical human being, a real human being, has it and can read it and can bring you in for an interview. And of course, this interview process now usually includes phone screens, video interviews, and site visits. Now, this entire blueprint is covered in the Cheeky Scientist Association as well. So if you're a PhD who's looking to get hired in industry, first thing I want you to do is go to our Facebook page. We have a post on the page about the resume webinar coming up this Thursday. New webinar, completely free, 2 live times. I'll be on there live. We're going to be bringing on other PhDs who have transitioned successfully at the end of the webinar to talk about their experience, so you don't want to miss that. We'll be going through this blueprint that will be focused on resumes and where resumes fit into your job search. So how to create a resume, and even more importantly, where does it fit in terms of the right sequence for getting hired. All right, so that's the first thing. The second thing I want you to do is go to phdsgethired.com, and this is where you can get on the wait list for joining the association, because our last enrollment of the year is coming up on November 6th. So if you have any questions about what I've talked about here and what the 3 things are that really hold PhDs back from getting hired, you can go ahead and ask them on a comment on this post. And I will see you next week for another whiteboard training seminar.